I'm not going, but I know that we did send it to them.
Yeah, unilateral?
Yeah, outside. Running a letter. Yeah, so they know the next one.
What are you focusing on today?
A couple different things. I'm actually going to be heading over at 1 o'clock to Armed Services. Millie and Esper are there today, so we're going to be.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think that's going to be my today turn. But I want to see if we can talk to these guys about extending unemployment. It's kind of a probably tomorrow or Monday deal for me.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you guys going after?
Well, it's interesting. It's, because we're kind of the religious nation, we got about the Hyde Amendment.
Okay.
Democrats have said that they're going to allow it in this next year's spending bill.
Yeah.
But they've said that they've already kind of fired a couple of warning shots about it.
Yeah, I saw Rosa DeLauro talked about
Yeah,
it yesterday.
Delora. Yeah, Delora. Yeah, Rosa Delora. She basically said, we're going to allow it this time, but I'm letting you know that we're going to do everything we can to take it out of future bills. And just wanted to get his reaction on that, and also just schools reopening.
Yeah, that's the big one. We got a couple people on that today.
Does he agree with President Trump in reopening of the schools?
I was working on that. So, they break us up, next year they break us up into regions. So, West Coast, and yesterday we had a lot of talk about the international students, just because California has the most of
Oh, yeah.
as you know.
Right, right. It's,
That's not responsible.
yeah, that, I see the point, but it takes a lot of money away from the schools. Taking,
Not having,
not having the international kids
Oh,
there.
yeah. I mean, that's a huge revenue.
That's huge.
I'm correct, in state, in the Midwest. That's a huge source there. It's every big university, every big.
I thought, it's funny, because I thought I had that read on it, but I wasn't sure if it was the correct one. Okay.
He's on what?
Thank you.
What's that?
He's on what?
Oh, okay.
I know. Good morning, all. Thanks for coming. Yesterday was a good day for religious freedom in America. In a sweeping 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court upheld an order from President Trump that protected religious groups from violating their deeply held beliefs. Government mandates should never conflict with a citizen's constitutional rights. For the past several months, we have asked our citizens to temporarily change their lives in the fight against this virus. Schools were closed, businesses forced to shut down, and millions were left out of work. And although there is more work to be done, there is uplifting news, and it's worth celebrating. Record job gains of 4.8 million last month. Over the past 2 months, 7.8 million jobs have been created. Imagine if this continues. We will have been able to rebuild, restore, and renew this country. It's the path that this president is on. Nearly 1/3 of all jobs lost during shutdown have actually returned. Now, we are not done with our fight against this virus, but we are on the road to rebuild and renew and restore this nation. We must now focus on what needs to be done for safely reopening our schools and daycare facilities. The question should not be if we open schools in America, but how. We want to do it safely. We want to protect the students. We want to protect the schools from liability. We want to give flexibility to the parents in the use of their money. If we have found ways for restaurants, casinos, and others to open, we must find ways for our daycare and our schools to open safely. We cannot miss out on a generation of not being taught. The pediatricians have told us and others the importance of children back to learning in a safe manner. And that's what our focus should be. I know in this House, Democrats are afraid to meet. But the priority, and essentially we should meet so we can work and prioritize how to open these schools and child care safely. And I think that's what our main focus should be upon. With that, let me open it up for questions. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering what your reaction is to the Supreme Court just ruling that the Manhattan District Attorney can subpoena for Trump's tax returns.
I haven't seen the ruling yet, but the Supreme Court made a decision. I've watched President Trump abide by all the requests that someone has for financial disclosure, which are much more thorough than any tax returns. It seems to me the New York District Attorney and others that have tried for it seems much more political than anything else. I think this decision has already been made by the president releasing all of his financial disclosures when he ran for president the first time. Yes.
I wanted to ask you very quickly, Leader, about the Hyde Amendment, and the Democratic chairwoman spoke during the HHS appropriations markup for the next year's spending bill, talking about the Hyde Amendment that they're going to allow at this time, but kind of putting a warning shot, saying that they're not going to, that they're going to do everything in their power to fight it in the coming spending bills.
You know, the one thing I would see, it is the rule of law. It is what bipartisan people were able to decide upon, even if they had a difference of opinion when it comes to abortion, that you would not take their taxpayer money to be used against. I think if you just even read the Supreme Court decision just this week of 7-2, it's concerning to me what I'm hearing out of the Democratic Party. The fundamental change they want to make to this nation. That is not the direction that I think the country wants to see. I've listened to what Omar said recently. What was the term she used? She was going to dissolve?
Dissolve, and she calls it discriminatory and racially unjust.
Imagine to have a country in the world that would bring a family in that were immigrants born in another nation, that lived in a refugees camp, but come to America and become citizens. And in the first generation, get elected to Congress. Would you want to dissolve that nation, or would you want to duplicate that nation around the world? See, America is more than a country, it's an idea. And we've watched in history so many times before that this idea was so powerful that shipyard workers in Poland in the 80s rose up, strong enough to destroy a wall that divided two Germanys, or even in modern history in Hong Kong, to crave the freedom that America has. You see, around the world, they want to duplicate what America believes in, not dissolve it. When I sat on the floor and I introduced Mike Garcia, a first-generation American whose father came from another country but became an American. His son graduated from a high school, excelled, had the opportunities that everybody else, and was nominated to go to the U.S. Naval Academy. On his own merit, he graduated in the top 3% of his class and was able to fly jets to defend a nation that loved him, that he loved as well. He ran for office not to dissolve America, but to duplicate it so there will be other generations who follow him of all the opportunities that he has. It's concerning to me that the Democrats look a different path, and that's an example of what they want to do in the future. Yes?
Sir, in the same vein of international students that may be coming to the United States, now we know that the administration has ruled that because of coronavirus, they may not be able to come back in the fall. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I think as we look at the coronavirus, we want to make sure the safety of all. I know the president had to make a very tough decision where others thought that he shouldn't, but it was the right decision to save many lives about flights from China coming into America, even though China would not allow domestic flights in their own country. So it wasn't about students coming from another country. It was students within their own country could not fly into Beijing, but they allowed people to leave their country and go to others. Fortunately, the president made a very tough decision that saved thousands of lives in America. I think as we walk through this is a special time, but we will welcome students back in as soon as we're able to welcome these schools to open. Imagine the ability to do that in a safe manner. And the way yet you can do that is Congress would focus on it. The number of child care facilities that have closed. We should focus on the ability for them to open up safely. Then you could open up an economy at the same time. For every parent that's home watching right now, they are more than a parent. They become the teacher, the coach, the tutor. We cannot leave this generation behind and not give them the education that they deserve. So what could we do? Let's prioritize the schools and the daycares. They can become home daycares in a safe manner. And you know who runs most of those? Women, minorities, and others. You can protect them from liability, so schools will actually have a willingness and a desire to open and not a fear that they're going to be sued. You could look at the tax code, where you could allow parents to save money in a health savings account to utilize that tax-free to pay for daycare. There are so many ways we can do this, but it's very difficult to do if Democrats are afraid to meet. I think that would be essential that we'd all be here at the same time and work to get this done and prioritize that. And that's what we should prioritize in our next bill. Yes?
Do you plan to attend the RNC convention? And
Yes.
Do you have any worries about health or safety concerns, given that Jacksonville is now deemed a hotspot?
You know, I know I'm speaking to the RNC chair and others. This is something they meet about every day. And no, I'll be at the convention gladly. And I know we'll do it in a safe manner. We'll take the precautions needed. It will probably look different than those in the past, knowing what we're living through today. But it will be an opportunity to share ideas and do it in a safe manner that we're distanced from one another at the same time. Yes?
At the end of the month, the $600 unemployment benefit is set to expire. I know some Republicans have floated the idea of, rather than extending that, a sort of like work incentive bonus. But given that in the past couple of days, we're seeing record number of daily cases of coronavirus added, is now the time, is it appropriate to end that unemployment extension in lieu of something that would, again, incentivize people to be out and about?
So your question, and sometimes people get this wrong, do you end the extension of the extra money that the federal government's paying? And should that be blanket across the country, or should it be based upon the cost of living in different states and others? When we first wrote the bill, there was a short time frame. We now have more data, more information. That's why people should come back and actually come to work in Congress instead of this shadow voting. You could have discussions about this. There are a lot of reports, and I've heard even from Democrats within their own districts, it's harming small businesses, where people are actually getting more money to stay off work than be able to come back. And we know it's important that people have jobs in America, and that's what our focus. That's why in committee we should look at this and see what is the best benefit to keep America safe, secure, but actually rebuild the economy that we had the very best in the history of this country before, and we can do it again.
If I could just follow up.
Yeah.
Between now and the end of July, if there's no sort of agreement reached in terms of how to extend these, are there conversations being had about just extending the $600 benefit beyond July?
I think the only discussions we're having right now is an overall package. If we're going to be gone in August, there are needs. There are liability protections for these schools to go forward. We should be focusing on the schools and the child care. There's a need for individuals who are still out of work. These are all things we should look at, and we should not make an excuse that Democrats don't want to come back and work, so we should just do one thing and extend. No, we should take the data that is out there today and see what is very best for this country. And Congress is essential. Congress should be here working. Unfortunately, the Democrats believe that shouldn't be the case, that they should have some type of shadow voting, that they could stay home, still be paid, and not do the job that they're elected to do. I think that's wrong. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that there should be federal funding withheld from schools that are unable to open at this time, or that remain committed to an online learning model through the fall?
I think there's different parts in the nation that you'll find hotspots or in others. I think we should take this from the provision laying out clear guidelines, talking to pediatricians and others, and being able to open those schools that can open. And we should lay out the framework, but also in our next bill, we should focus on that from childcare and schools. How do we do it safely? And that's the discussion we should be having, and we could have if Congress was back in session. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Probably should do that.